Welcome to the very first episode of the FraudCast, powered by Updation. I'm your host today, Sean Rains, and today, we're going back to the origin story, how real industry scars, not flashy pitches, gave rise to a very, very important dealership solution. And I can't wait for you guys to start learning more about it. Joining me today are Updation's co-founders, CEO Layton Judd, who brings way more than 25 years of automotive industry experience. And, well, he's been a retail superstar for years. The COO at Updation, Ralph Perkins, who's nearly 3 decades in retail ops, have shaped the platform's foundation. Together, we're going to unpack painful realities, real ones, that dealerships face around fraud, vendor mismanagement, margin erosion, why traditional systems have left leaders exposed. And most importantly, we're going to hear how Layton and Ralph turned their own experiences into innovation, building a platform that delivers the one thing that dealers really need most and always, and that's financial clarity, because there's a lot of chaos inside of the dealership. So, this is built from pain, not pitch. This is going to be the origin story of Updation, so let's jump right into it. Welcome, Ralph and Layton.
Hello there. Thank you for having us.
It's always fun because I'm welcoming you to your own podcast, so I'm delighted that I get to host it and have these conversations with you. I'm going to try to make this as easy as possible for people to get to know you guys that don't know you already, although lots of people in the industry are familiar with both of you. The best place to start is always the beginning, in my opinion, and so let's start there. How did your journeys in the automotive world begin, and how did those experiences shape the way that you see automotive today? And either one of you can go first. I'll let you guys decide.
I'll take it first. I started in the industry completely by accident in automotive. I was on a break from college, and I was coming home looking for a job, and I had been working prior to my girlfriend at the time's dad's friend's company selling like newspaper space to some newspaper no one ever heard of, business to business. And I started knocking on a Toyota store's door. And I say, hey, you want to buy this ad in this newspaper you never heard of before, right? And they were like, no, but hey, we like you. You know, you're a young guy, and hey, why don't you sell some cars? And I'm like, yeah, I've never done that before. I'm not looking at that. I'm only here for the summer. I'm going back to college. And they're like, well, you can do it as a summer job. So I jump into it, and then it's like the mafia, once they put you in, you can never get out, right? So here I am, I'm in this store and I'm selling cars, and I'm doing pretty good selling cars. And then, they had come up with a new thing, Southeast Toyota, cause I was in the Southeast market, had come up with this thing with, another company it presented called the Business Development Center. No one ever heard of it. Right? Hey, we're doing this business development center, so let's get a bunch of people in there. And they had started it already, and it kind of wasn't really, it was floundering a little bit. And they said, well, let's grab the kid and have the kid go up there and do it. He's pretty good on the phone, so we'll have him do it. So next thing you know, I'm sitting in the BDC now, and again, no one even knew what those were at the time, and I'm a BDC rep for Toyota. And over time, the manager gets promoted, and then he leaves to another company. He went to go work for a big national company that's global, and I took his spot, and it was great. And then from there, then we ended up selling the store, and from there I went to work for another national automotive group now, and I got to travel. So I'm like, oh, this is great. I get to travel. I get to be on the road. This is so fantastic. Until you realize that it's not fantastic. But I'm like, oh, this is great. I get to travel. So I'm traveling all these different dealerships, mostly on the East Coast, but a couple in the Midwest. And I'm traveling there, and I'm working with I'm e-commerce and business development center director. Okay, yeah. So this is great. Now I have multiple stores and platforms, and we did that for a little bit, and then got promoted in that company to a national sales director, and was working with that group for national sales director for a little while. And then ultimately, the COO of the company had left. He went someplace else. Him and I had a good relationship, and I ended up exiting and doing some consulting work for a little bit. And then he grabbed me and said, "Hey, I'm over at this other even bigger company, that's national, and we got stores all over the country, from California all the way to New York and Miami." So I'm like, "Okay, great." And he's like, "Come on board, and eventually you can work into being a partner with us." I'm like, "Okay, this is fantastic." So I don't know, in my 30s doing this, and I'm like, "This is great." So I come now. I'm traveling to other places in the country that I've never traveled before. Still liking travel at this point. Again, until you realize it's not something not to like. Anyway, so I started doing that, and then it was great. That company has been fantastic. Worked with them a long time, and we parted for a short period of time, and I went to Hawaii for a little bit, and I ended up running a company out there as a COO for about 4 years, and learned a lot. Totally different environment. I've never worked before, so it was great doing that. And then come back to Miami after that 4-year stint, coming back with that same company, and end up actually becoming that partner that I was originally looking at years ago, and became a partner at a store in Miami, and we did fantastic. Top 15, top 20 dealership in the country. Did great, and we ended up selling that store in 2023. And even though I was a managing partner there, sold the store, ended up going to work for that company as the vice president of operations, actually executive vice president of operations with that company after the retiring COO had left. And I ended up running that automotive division. And that's kind of, in a nutshell, how I came to be where I'm at in this business.
I feel after that statement, Ralph, I need to get more stripes. I think I need to get around there some more. So,
well, it wasn't easy, that's for sure. But
it
sounds easy. I guess.
I'm like, wow, that's like a long list. I mean, that's a lot of things. So anyway, Sean, first off, you said that we should thank you for coming to our podcast. Not you hosting it. Thank you for agreeing to host it. Right. Yeah, so anyway, my start was really weird. I never expected to be in the automotive business. Like everyone else, you hear the same story. Oh, I'm never going to get it. My parents said, don't get in the automotive business. What are you doing selling cars? Or in the automotive industry. To be honest, I'm not a car salesperson. I've always been on the technology side. And I learned early on, and how I got into it was a really interesting way. In 1999, I think it was, I just bought a Cherokee. And I didn't know how to fix the time on it or the clock on it. And so I went back to the dealership, and I was doing something completely different in technology. I was doing staffing, and I had a business partner. And I said to him, we should do something with this. And we started talking about it. And we created a company called Ismo Cars from that, and it was basically a walk around of a vehicle that we did in Flash at the time, and then it evolved down the road to 450 employees, about 2,000 dealerships. And we had the CRM company we built, training, and also websites. And so we produced that. Left that company, started another company with my now ex-wife. And that was a company called Three Birds Marketing. And that goal of that company is what I was learning is about content, creating content, and also making sure that that content can be visible online, but at the same time that it's content that's in a life cycle of a ownership or a buying cycle of a customer. And so what we started doing is that the databases were all disparate, just much like today. We're talking about CDPs and things like that. So in 2010, 2011, I started stitching together one of the early CDPs, and what it was is like looking at the CRM and the DMS data, and then bringing other points of data, including the interaction data, and finding out where customers were and what they wanted, so we could change the content to what they want. And so that's something that we created. And after this exit, I've started with Updation.
I love both those answers, gentlemen, and I will, on your podcast, always be calling you gentlemen. I'll be nice to you guys, I promise. Every once in a while, maybe I'll get a little spicy, but I want to say something.
Thank God someone's calling me a gentleman finally, so I appreciate that.
That's right. Finally, it took all these years.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I think it's very important, just from a contextual perspective. In our industry, there are a lot of people that will be asked the question that I asked you guys at the beginning of just tell me, how'd you get into this? What shaped, the way you look at the industry now? And we're really talking about and asking you about your experience. And I say I'm a broken record. Experience, though, is the greatest differentiator. And you guys bring so much of that to the table. So while sometimes people are like, I don't really want to talk about myself and to say all these things, the reality is for this audience, which is brand new at episode 1, as you build an audience, I think it's one of the most important things that dealers should want to know about the two of you, and probably everybody else at Updation, but certainly anybody that's at that co-founder level. So thank you guys for, just kind of sharing with people that, because I think that's one of those kind of conversation starters, even when people will see you at industry events or wherever, is you've got a foundation to start with people, and you don't have to wonder whether or not they are pretending to know things versus you actually know them. So
no, absolutely. Thank you for that. But I'd like to add in here that it's not just us. We also have Matt Weinberg, who's also a co-founder, and Louise Fays. And Matt has been around for a long time in the industry, not only from a retail side, but also from a sales side. But also Louise Fays, she has been building technology since she's 13. I don't want to give her age out because she'd shoot me. But that being said, she's been doing technology for a really long time. That our nucleus of who we are and the basically the ingredients that we're building together is the foundation for what's going to be successful as we start exploring and talking about what we're doing. So I'm excited about the team that we have here.
Yeah. And then, hey, listen, in the spirit of transparency, I know and talk to a lot of people in the automotive industry. I've known you for a long, I know all of you at the co-founders at your company. And so I know all the things that you're talking about them are absolutely 100% true. I think that is always also a big differentiator about who is leading, especially new businesses that come in, new entrants. There's a lot of skepticism typically that comes from the dealer side, and for good reason, because oftentimes what you're just talking about from people that have so much of this really relative important experience, they don't. And sometimes it takes a little while for the dealer to find out, oh my goodness, these people didn't really know what they were doing. So yeah, you've got a great team of people. And I feel fortunate that I know all of you. So it's a joy, it's a pleasure for me, and easy to have these conversations. So next thing I want to ask you guys, open it up a little bit about, because Updation's brand new, or very, very new. Not that you guys haven't been working on it for some time, but as you guys start to make content and start to talk about what you're up to, there's going to be a lot of people who are like, well, what is Updation? So that's the next thing I want to ask you guys is, what is Updation? How did the two of you come together with this new company to get this thing started? And then maybe share a little bit about the roles that you each play here in the early vision, and maybe how that goes forward.
Yeah, not a problem. Updation is an AI-powered built platform to give dealerships financial clarity. At its core, we connect contracts to invoices and approvals into one system. So every dollar a dealer spends is visible, verified, and tied back to a vendor track to see where they're spending it. So that's important. We want to see what the invoices are that are to your contracts to make sure that you're on target. Right now, most dealers are running blind in the back office. Contracts are scattered, invoices slip through without approvals, and fraud or vendor overages erode margins. Updation closes these gaps, and we just don't process invoices faster. We prevent money from leaking out in the first place. Ralph, I've known Ralph forever. And so, of course, I'm going to go to him when I have a new project here. And so I go to Ralph, and I first approach him to be my alpha client, but, he wanted to do more. So I'll let Ralph tell his version of how it is, because it's better coming from him.
All right, well, thank you. So obviously, Layton and I know each other for a while. So back when he was with Ismo Cars and Three Birds. And the funny thing is, I was always trying to do something somebody else wasn't doing. So even in Ismo, I'm like, oh, by the way, so you have this website. Can we do this other thing? I want to do this thing that's virtual. Can you make it? And Layton, unfortunately, was on the ride with me. And it's like, yeah, sure. And it's like, okay, I'll try to do this.
Ralph, it also caused problems, but that's a whole nother story for later.
So he tries to do that. Then he's with Three Birds, and I'm like, hey, I want to do this other thing, that totally out of the scope of whatever they do, right? Nothing is in the scope of what their job is. I'm just throwing it out like, hey, I want to do this. And he's dumb enough to go, sure, hey, let's try it. So I always enjoyed that relationship, because he would never shot it down, and it was always great about looking at the stuff that I wanted to do that was outside the spectrum of normalcy, right? So Layton, Matt, Louise, they approached me at NADA like, I don't know, a year and a half ago or something like that. And I'm there, and I had just taken over as the executive VP of the company after selling, as being the operating partner, right, of the others of my store. So we had just sold that, and now I'm here in this new role. And they approached me about, hey, we got this new product, called Updation, and we want to, it's contract management, right? And they're talking about the contract management. They're talking about invoice matching. And I'm like, okay, that's pretty cool. And I'm like, all right, but, what else? And they're like, well, we want to see if you want to be involved with it and stuff like that. And I was like, well, I can't be involved, unfortunately, like any other way other than as a client, because it's just a conflict of my agreement. I said, however, I'd be a client if you did one thing to this. I said, what you have is great, and it's fantastic. Just add invoices to it. Add the invoices where you're paying the invoice, right?
Well, that's actually the key, Ralph, right there, what you said, paying the invoice.
Yeah, paying the invoice. So if you pay the invoice, you have the invoice, but pay it also. That would be huge, and that's kind of how, our relationship, started, from there.
Ralph, hold on 1 second.
Go ahead, Layton.
I'd like to add in here just a little sidebar from this in our relationship, because what Ralph said about always having different ideas, we now call him Wreck-It Ralph. We go, oh, here comes a Wreck-It Ralph. When we look at it, great, because we have to solve a problem. So here comes Wreck-It Ralph. So here he comes. So Wreck-It Ralph is here. So anyway, sorry about that. I had to put that there on the public sphere.
I'm always trying to make things better. So
that's good. I follow both of you guys on LinkedIn, and I think this is where I saw this, so I wanted to ask you about it. Ralph, you've said that Updation was built from pain, not pitch. What do you mean? What does that mean to you?
Well, so when I was talking about paying the invoice, that's the pain, because every single month, we have a check signing party I had at my store. And it's every store. You guys checks up to we're old school. We get the check. I got backup like this, right? And they're up to here on my desk, and I'm going through all of these pieces of paper, and my poor AP person and control. I make them print me out every single solitary thing that has to do with that check. I want to make sure that it's right, and I'd go through it. And it would take me forever to go through it. And occasionally, I catch some stuff, that's there that slipped through the cracks. I'll tell you, maybe one thing a month was slipped through. I caught it, but I'm just looking at it with an eye, right? And I got a lot of stuff going on too. So taking the time out, and it's like literally like a day to do this, and not to mention how many days it's taken the AP person to get it together. How many days does my controller have to go through it after I look at it or before I look at it, or the questions I have, and I'd write questions and put like little Post-its on every single check. Some stuff is stuff that I probably should have remembered, but when you have checks that many, you can't remember everything, So I question things. I'm writing Post-its, and now she's got to go back and look it up and tell me what it is, and we have a meeting about the 10 things that I had questions on, right? So that's the pain, was that it's just so time consuming to do it. And I always felt that I was missing something. Even though I would catch something, I always felt that I'm missing something. Even how as wonderful as my team was, and they were fantastic. Okay? Absolutely greatest people in the accounting office, and my controller was amazing. However, I still felt that somewhere I might be missing something. I had that feeling. So that was the pain, was there, is that I just wanted to expedite that and not spend all day doing it, and be confident that it was correct all the time. And really that's why I did write that on LinkedIn. You're 100% right. I was quoting Holly Berry, who actually made the quote, and Forbes posted it, and I reposted it, and I was saying, and her reason is because she was misdiagnosed with I think menopause, and so she opened up a foundation. So I thought it was so interesting just reading about her story and her journey on it. And I'm like, that's really how this came about with me, with Layton. It's like, hey, this would solve a huge pain point that I think every dealer has, because we're all doing those check signing ceremonies. We all probably are missing something, but may not want to face that reality that we are.
And I mean that's and to close off the side of the conversation, it's amazing our roles. And we run EOS here, and so I sit on the visionary, and Ralph sits in the integrator position, and we're basically on the same line. Is there any real difference between us? And not in my head and how I act, and hopefully he feels that way. But he brings such a wealth of knowledge to us that it would have taken us so long to get, versus we have a cheat code. Now. So, and that helps Updation from the foundation of what we're building. We have a great team around us with developers, and we're growing in the AI side. So we're excited about that. But having that cheat code allows us to really dig into the niche and really solve a lot of the problems. So,
Yeah.
Yeah,
It
and
really.
I'll say, sorry, Sean, and I appreciate that, Leighton. And then we all complement each other because we all have different skill sets, which is great. Obviously Leighton has been with Ismo, Three Birds, started 2 companies successfully. That's great. Matt, again, fantastic. He's done a lot of great things with a lot of other companies as well. He's a great marketing guy, and then Louise, obviously, with her experience and and just code writing and IT is amazing. So we all kind of have our lanes, which is great, because we complement one another and we don't have a lot of overlapping, which is good. And just to go back to your original question, how I got here, I became available. I came available. Speaking of travel, I just didn't want to over travel anymore. So as I was mentioning earlier, I kind of got to my threshold on traveling. As I tell people, they're like, because some people don't understand why. I said, well, what's great? I really love my wife, and I like being around her, right? So I really love her, and she likes me a lot. So, so that's a good.
And by the way, for the record, she doesn't like me too much because the Eagles beat the Chiefs, but that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah, we won't bring that up. But anyway,
we just did.
I became available because I didn't want to do the traveling as much anymore. Obviously modest travel. So, I first came in with Leighton. I said, hey, I'll come in as an advisor. And I started, advising, similar to what he's talking about, kind of, giving an insight on the dealer's perspective, right? And then after that, I got more intrigued.
Real quick, Ralph, your advising is not just advising. You come in with a full, which is positive. Don't get me wrong, but it's like you're not just an advisor. You're coming in to help. You picked up the trouble right away. And where I'm going with this, from my end, Ralph, he's an advisor, so I only thought we'd have so much time with him. And the next thing he's turning around saying, okay, well, I want to give you money. Okay. That sounds great. Okay, we'll take your money. But what was interesting to me is that and then all of a sudden he said, I really love what you're doing. He said to me, and I said, what do you mean? He calls me up in the blue. I got a proposition for you. So Ralph, give him the proposition, and I'll finish the story off after that.
Well, basically, I said I'll come in, and I felt that I can bring value, to the team. For the same reasons that we're talking about. We're all complement each other. So I felt like I bring value, and I said, you need some help in the operational side of things, and again, I think I could bring value, and I would come in as the COO of the company, if you need the help, and it's kind of how it came out. I think that we both kind of we were kind of having these conversations without actually saying that already. Because, like you said, I'm supposed to be an advisor. I'm spending a couple, I'm not supposed to be as involved, but I was getting myself more involved, and I wanted to be, because I really it's a pain point. I loved what we're doing. So I'm like, I want to be involved in this because it's like a passion project, and it's a passion project that very rarely you get to solve a real problem, so that's how it came about.
And as well, at the end of it, we made him a co-founder, and usually you would have I think a difficult time for others out there, other companies that would have, okay, well, I got this guy, Ralph, and he's coming in and all this path, and all of a sudden we want to make him a co-founder as well. There could be a lot of egos out there. It took me 2 hours to go through the conversations with people and get it done. So we knew right away it was a home run for us.
Well, let me unpack a couple of things, and I'm going to go all the way back up to pain, not pitch. Honestly, I think that it's too bad you guys could not copyright or trademark that whole saying. Although I know that, and you just disclosed, and I remember that now because the picture had the Halle Berry tweet, and I'm like, I don't know that anybody's ever been inspired by a Halle Berry quote that gets into the automotive industry, but I'm here for it.
That's
But
Ralph for you.
what I really love about that is you were on the retail side of the automotive industry. The primary people that you want this podcast and content from this podcast and the ideas and the insights from this podcast are also car dealers. That's the primary audience. And that is literally what their mindset should be when they're trying to figure out if they need a new solution, if they don't need a new solution. It should be, where are all of your pain points? And is there something that helps relieve that pain, solve that problem? And you found that. It wasn't by somebody's pitch. And I'm a broken record when it comes to how do you go and take your company to the market? What are you going to say? How are you going to differentiate? When you have to answer a dealer's question, how do you help me? That's a dealer saying, I have pain all over the place. Where are you going to take some of it away or relieve it or remove it? And so I won't belabor the point. I don't think that's cliche. I think that's something that every dealer should think about when they're thinking, gosh, this is such a pain. I'm losing sleep over it. Okay, is there something that fixes that? That also brings a point of credibility to what you guys are doing, which is you didn't build a solution and now you're shopping around for a problem to attach it to. That happens in automotive all the time, and I'm sure you have years of it, Ralph, of decades of having people come through with, let me pitch you on some nonsense BS that doesn't solve a single problem, and it certainly doesn't take away any pain. And I think you guys, just in that part of what you're sharing with people as you tell the world, hey, we're doing this thing together, I think that's a really important thing for them to consider when they're thinking about updation. Directly from somebody who actually has the lived experience. The fact that it associates all the way into becoming part of, as an advisor, as an investor, as a co-founder, and part of the C-suite. Personally, for anybody that trusts the reputation that I have in the industry, I love stories like that because it's real, right? It cuts through. It doesn't matter if you like every single person from a personality standpoint. When I'm thinking about businesses in the industry, there's a lot of people where I'm like, I don't know that I would hang out with them, but I like what they've built. I like the product they've built because it solves a problem. It really solves a problem. It takes away pain. So for what that's worth, I just wanted add a tag on to what you guys shared there because I think it's really, really important. Let's talk about a moment that you realized that the car business needed a solution like Updation.
It goes back, I'm dating myself, but that goes back 25 years ago for me. When I got my first cancellation call, and it was real simple. It was like, hello, do you have my contract? Can I get a copy of my contract? And so I've always put the dealers, and I still do on many levels, put dealers on a pedestal because they're selling cars. They got to have all the documentation, and everything seems so buttoned up. And so here it is as a vendor. I was getting these calls. Unfortunately, I know you other vendors out there are saying, no, I don't get that. I'm going to say BS. You're all getting the same calls we do. It happens. But, in the end of the day, it's this call that says, hey, I want my contract. Can you send it to me? And so a whole cancellation process kicks inside and trying to save it. And whether you save it or not, that's not the point. The point is that, where are the contracts? Why don't you have it? Where is it? Is it our issue, meaning we didn't, as a vendor, send it to you, or is it lost in space? And so I just remembered this. This happened at Ismo Cars, happened to Three Birds, and so I just sat there and said, "Hey, I'd like to change this." When I exited Three Birds, I was like, "All right, what am I going to do next? What is it that I can officially say? All right, I want to go work on. What gives me, going to get me out of bed in the morning and go do something?" And I started looking at this, and I was having a conversation with a friend of mine who runs a store in California, Honda store. And anyway, I was at his store, and I was talking with him, and I'm sitting down in his office, and his office is really small, and he has this school desk in there, and it's not a big desk at all. And I was shocked by the image of who this person is and everything else that I had in my mind of who this person is. He's really successful, and he's in a really small desk. And I'm sitting in this room, and I'm telling him, he's like, what are you going to do, da, 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 da. And I start talking about what I'm talking about, like, So I ask him, where do you keep your contracts? And literally, he opens up this school desk drawer that, with the file system in there, that's just that one drawer, and it opens up real long, and on the top, there's a pile of papers like this. And they're just stacked. And he goes, the latest one's on top. I go, what? That's your filing system? And this is somebody that is very successful, has run multiple stores, large, and I just look at him and I go, are you kidding me? So that's what started me down that path, the contracts and looking at how do you just get contracts in. And then Wreck-It Ralph comes in and does what he does in conversation. And so we've expanded that into many things. And that's how I got started with Updation.
I can give a whole bunch of, cues, I guess, along the way that the industry needed this. My 29, year career, I really can. But, I'm going to share a story with you. One story that is a little egregious, but it's a true story, and I'd love to tell you about it. So around 2018, 2019. Right. So we have a national website company. There, several websites, right? They're on, like a lot of people do. We give them, we file with a credit card, right? Yeah, your Amex or whatever, your company one, your personal, whatever it is that you're doing, your store, your preference. So we have it, in this case, we had our GM, our partner's card in with, this national, very well known website company, right? Okay, great. We're on them for a while, years, on the program. And then all of a sudden, 1 month, boom, we get hit for 33 charges in a week, right? So, you're like, whoa, what's going on? So, we call the GM partner calls the owner of the website company because, we have a national deal. You work in, so... Oh, no problem. We're going to take care of it right away. Something was wrong. It must have been a breach or something on it. Oh, don't worry. We'll get it handled tomorrow. Okay. Fine. Tomorrow comes and goes. Doesn't get handled. Right? Boom. Get hit again. Another 31 times. Okay. So now, I'm involved now. Right? So I'm calling. Hey, what's going on? What's happening? What I don't understand what's going on. Oh, I'm sorry. It's going to get handled next week. It's, okay. Why can't I get handled tomorrow? Well, because I'm flying here. This is going on. Okay, fine. Next week comes. Nothing's getting handled. Right? We get hit again. 1 or 2. Right? So now we're getting, obviously we have a stop on the card. Right? Everything is a stop. But, the credit card company wants their money. So, we're like, oh my God, now the bill's now north of $70,000. All right.
For a website company?
I'm sorry?
For a website company?
For a website company. Well, they hit us,
wow,
that many times. You're talking about, 60, 70 times almost, right? So it's a monthly fee. It's a whole monthly fee. So, so anyway, I'm not going to disclose who it is or what, where, or who, what, when, but other than the fact that it took us months to get this resolved, right? And they kept pushing it and pushing it and pushing it and blame to something else, some other reason. Yet we still couldn't get the refund back. We basically had to threaten legal, right? And then we finally got the refund back. So you ask a question about Updation. How does it help? Well, there you go. That's a pain point that I had to live through. And I was really stressed during those months while we're trying to deal with this, especially when it was a company that I felt that was very strong for the for the company to have, So I felt like my name's attached to it, in a way, even though it's a national company, it could happen to anybody. But yeah, I felt that I was attached to it, and it just gave me a lot of stress and a lot of pain point trying to get this resolved, And when you have a company like us that is able to immediately isolate that, and again, you're not going to have your own personal credit card on file necessarily. You can, but why would you? This could happen, right? That's why you don't want to do it. So you have a controlled environment where as soon as there's one charge, if there's a second charge, it's abnormal, okay? It's not going to allow you to charge 31 times. It's just not going to be there, right?
Yeah.
We're not going to allow it to happen. So that's just one example of a massive pain point that I had to live through. And again, I got accused throughout the whole lifetime, but that one was a very interesting one per se.
Couple of thoughts on that. What an amazing story. And certainly, yeah, if you don't learn a lesson from a story like that, good grief, check your pulse. But I think, one, even though, and I think respect is deserved, that you are not naming these people. They will remain unnamed. But I also suspect that people that know you, and maybe some that don't, are going to find a way to either ask you if they see you in person, although I am with you. I got really tired of traveling as well. So maybe you won't have to see these people in person. But I have a feeling that people even direct messaging you or texting you are going to be trying to get that name from you. I also think that maybe you guys weren't the only ones that this company was doing that with, and probably it was you and whomever else maybe making their payroll, because that just seems...
You figure?
Yeah.
It's egregious, and the last thing I'll say about it, because I'm this B2B marketing guy these days, is that's the type of poisonous, toxic story that you do not want people telling in your vertical, because it will kill your company. It will absolutely decimate your trust in the marketplace. And I say it all the time, and the reason why we have conversations like this that we can turn into the type of content that a company's prospective customers as well as current customers would like to know. It also is, if you have stories like that in the market that you serve, the fastest way to not have any trust with the marketplace. And if you don't have trust with people and you're in a competitive category, you won't win. You might not go out of business tomorrow, but eventually you will, or you'll have to come up with some other way to figure out how to, keep doing the kind of nefarious things like that. But it certainly won't be built on trust. It's like the worst thing I could imagine is like, hey, I totally did Ralph Perkins wrong in this dealer setting, and now he's like, that's a story you don't want going on out there. So
and it could have ended differently.
Yeah.
We
If you want to be known
ultimately
and you
got
want to be
resolved.
liked,
It got resolved, but it could have ended that could not have been the happy ending. It could have went a different way. That's for sure. And I've heard,
good.
The funny thing is, when I've told this story before, again without naming, to friends, they've told me subsequent stories of the same thing happening with other vendors, and it did not end as well as mine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wish it weren't true that there are some stories like that out there with companies, and sometimes it's individuals within companies that are much more, I don't know if evil is the right word, but they certainly aren't good people, and they know it, and they will take advantage when they can. And I think most people are aware of some of that, but you get sick of it really quickly, and it doesn't typically help if you're trying to build a brand or maintain a brand and you want to be known and liked and trusted for the right reasons. It's just horrible. So bummer that happened to you. Let's move into something a little different here. Traditional systems largely have kind of failed to address issues like you have ghost vendors. Layton, the example that you gave of the guy pulls out the drawer and it's like, well, that's the most recent one on top. Ugh. Although that's probably reality in way too many dealers.
Absolutely. So, we're finding that all the time right now.
Okay, so ghost vendors, invoice mismatches, lost rebates or discounts, or there's just a myriad of things that kind of traditionally have not been well served and addressed. Tell me a little of your thoughts on that, and either of you can go first here.
Well, I'll go first. I spent some time with a bunch of different groups, but also know a lot of people in the marketplace. So, what I noticed the most is a habit, is a dealer habit, and they have a dedicated person doing the accounts payable position. So I see like they don't realize that this position is safeguarding your money, right? And you're probably one of the lowest paid positions in the company, an hourly employee, unfortunately. And as a dealer, operator, or dealer or owner or whatever, or GM, whatever it is, a person that is operationally in control, you have a different mindset and interest about safeguarding your money, right? This person, although they're fantastic for you. They could be the best. They've been there 30 years. And that's great. Their mindset making, $18, $20, whatever an hour is not the same mindset as you, right? So you're going, right. You're looking at every single little detail because you want to make sure you're safeguarding your company, right? And this person may not have been trained well enough to do that, for one. But for two, they're still not you. So they're not looking at the same way. The process is not the same. So, and then, granted, you have another layer there, right? You have a controller or CFO, right? They're looking at it too, and maybe but they're also, looking at 9 million other things as well. And again, sometimes the human eye, we just can't catch everything. Even myself, like I said before earlier, that I would find at least probably one thing a month, but I still felt that I was missing something, right? And I'm looking at it like it's my own dollar, right? So I'm looking at it every single diligent, and I still felt uncomfortable. So I think, having that AP person or someone looking at it, it could be a process issue, but it's the fact that they're just not looking at it the same way, and things slip through the cracks. I mean, I like I said, I've done some consulting, and give you a recent example. That's I was consulting with a company, and they literally got a bill, an invoice that said on the invoice, okay, per Ralph. They cut the check, right? And I somehow got a hold of this, and I saw it. I said, wait, what's this company? I didn't okay that. I don't even know who this is. We got no W-9, no proof of insurance, no nothing, right? But the check's there and signed already. And I'm like, no, don't send this out. Who is this? And don't know who it was. Just check. And, years ago, I remember at a 20 group, someone told a story that this vendor had come in. Actually, he told the story, and then someone backed up the story. We had a 20 group meeting, and this vendor came in and said, hey, I sent out invoices to all of you in the 20 group. Every single person there got an invoice from this company that they've never heard of, right? And I bet that you've all, I would tell you right now, you guys would pay any invoice in front of you. No, everybody's saying, no, you wouldn't. We wouldn't pay it, right? The guy starts handing out the checks back to every single person in the 20 group, except for one person. Only one person didn't write a check. Everybody else did. Again, without the same documents I was just talking about. And so this vendor, this guy told this story, right? And somebody was there back up and said, yeah, this actually happened. And this was at a 20 group meeting. So, I mean, it's just amazing that everybody thinks they're so buttoned up, right? Like I said, even I think I was so buttoned up, and I felt uncomfortable even as buttoned up as I was,
Yeah.
So, for what it's worth.
That's a super powerful story. That 20 group story. I think it ties in. It's almost like, Updation is a tool for helping dealers like make all those dollars visible. And so that would have floored me to like be in that room and see everybody but one get a check to prove such a really, really, really critically important point, because it ties into some like profitability and just the blinders, right? And it's not intentional, right? But I say this a lot. I think that dealers, especially at the dawn of the internet, I think that was the beginning of a whole bunch of avalanches of new technology and systems and processes, and oftentimes opportunities that required processes. I say this all the time. If you got addicted to leads and you weren't addicted to process, you caused yourself problems. It's decades and decades of that. You look at dealers who have really, really consistent process. But with you guys have the ability to help emphasize making all of these investments, all of these dollars visible. How does that philosophy like show up in the way that the platform works for a dealer, like on a day-to-day?
Well, I mean, the whole thing is basically we're trying to mitigate, fraud for one, but help the process along, best practice per se. So, every dollar is visible because we have your contract, we have an invoice, and we're matching the invoice to the contract. And as the invoice comes in, you'll have, let me give you this. Sometimes some stores, right, they don't really know where they're at expense-wise until the end of the month, right? Because, for whatever reason, right, the AP person's busy doing other things and they're not putting everything in, and they're usually putting it in and paying it at the same time, right? Maybe they're on vacation for a week, so nothing gets put in for a week, so you kind of don't know where it is. You have an idea because you looked at last month, and you go, okay, last month I was here, and this month I should be right around here but I did spend a little bit more on marketing. Maybe I did pay for this extra thing here, and we had to put a fence over here, and I had to buy a piece of equipment. Okay, so I'll be a little bit higher maybe this month, right? So you have an idea, but you don't really know. So with our system, as the invoices come into the system, it's a tracking. So you can see, even though you're not paying them yet, right, and you're not recognizing them as an expense maybe on your DMS system, but you certainly can see where you are. So you can see what's coming in and every dollar that's there. So you can say, okay, this is what's there. So at that point, obviously, depending on your situation, you can choose to pay it immediately right there, or you can wait for a little cash flow and and try to maximize your cash flow opportunity and wait to the end of the month. But at least you know where you are, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
that's kind of how it's visible, and and that's part of how the platform works. Layton, I'll let him take some of this.
No, you said it really well. So I mean, it's about exposing the challenges that they have, but really, I also look at it as a way to make the employees or the people who are doing the job, give them much more information and data through AI. So they're going to be able to focus on what needs to be focused on, rather than always chasing these people around. So the AI is going to be able to help you focus on what you need to, and the AI will learn and do things automatically for you.
So that kind of sets up the next thing I wanted to ask you guys. Maybe this is a good question for you, Layton. We all know that adoption, when a dealership says yes, isn't necessarily easy. Dealership teams are really busy, and they've got a million things going on, and everybody wants their attention, and lots of pitches, no one attaching, like, here's how we solve some of your pain points. How did you design Updation to not just be powerful from how useful it is and important, but also easy for the dealers to onboard, implement, and get going?
I mean, that's a great question. I mean, you said it. Adoption is key to any software. If you don't have adoption, as a vendor, you're screwed, or as a provider, you got problems. And if you don't make it easy for someone to use right out of the gate, that's the first and foremost. You have to make it easy. And we learned the hard way here. So we had to actually pivot, because we were trying to get the contracts in. We realized, there's such a mess, they don't have the contracts, and it's hard to get to, and it's a laborious process sometimes, depending on how you look at it. So with the invoices coming in, we can actually start something that they get immediate value in. And so the invoices coming in and getting into the approvals, they can start seeing, and we can get the contracts in over a period of time now, but the immediacy is, and having something that is going to help you right away is important. So that was one thing. So we designed it so that, where Updation to meet them where they are. That was a key thing. And then secondly, it reminds me of a story of The Graduate. I'm kind of dating myself here. When Mr. McGuire comes out and grabs Ben right at the graduation party, and he yanks him out by the pool, and he says, "Ben, got one word for you: plastics." In this case, automation, and I'd add AI. That's an important piece of it, so that we can put this in to help the different people that are working inside the platform, and having that automation and take over for them, and learn as it's going through. And all of a sudden, with Agentic, we're able to learn things from this and do things for people down the road. And that's important. And basically, I think that the fast time to value, again, is going back to onboarding, making sure that it's lightweight, so dealers get results in weeks, not months.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. You can have all of the awesome tools, right? But you mentioned it in just to kind of agreeing how I set up that question about adoption and how easy it is. We've been talking about this in automotive for a long time relative to certain types of CRM's a really good example. If you only utilize 10% of your CRM's capability, then don't scream about the 90% that it could help you with that you don't even adopt and you don't utilize. And CRM is just one of many examples now that dealers have a lot of new tools and a lot of new technology, and some of it, to your point, Layton, takes months. Sometimes for some dealers, it might be like way too many months, and they still couldn't actually articulate whether or not it was solving a problem, helping them, like bringing value immediately. And I think dealers want that, and they need it.
Absolutely do. And I mean, you're bringing something for me that I wasn't planning on talking about, but just talking about what we're talking about right now, it makes me think of where we're heading with the platform, where we're actually going to be taking and putting in vendor health basically down the road. And vendor health is the idea, and the concept of that is that we're going to be measuring KPIs. We're going to know a lot of data and information. We're going to be doing some surveys and things like that. And then in this vendor health, it's, should I replace my vendor, or should I actually get more training on it, or is it the people? Where does the responsibility lie? So we're not just about the dealer, we're also about the vendor, and trying to bring the two together to make a better relationship. In all honesty, that's really what we're looking to do with the vendor health side that we see coming out sometime in Q1 next year. But our goal is to really make their vendor relationship stronger. And we think that by being on top of the invoices, being on top of the bills, getting rid of the fraud, and doing all these things, we're going to make a better relationship between the dealer and the vendors.
Which I think is super important. I've been a fan of this even when I was still working for some of those big brands, slinging websites and digital marketing services and all of those things. I've always tried to be a friend to just about everybody in the industry because I just don't really have a bone to pick with a whole lot of folks. And the spirit of that, I think, is really important because it fosters an environment that's best for the dealer. And I think that the dealer should always be the most important in the equation. That's who everyone's trying to help. And so I love the fact that that matters to you, just how that's kind of part of the ecosystem, or the DNA maybe is a better way to say it, with Updation is there are a lot of things that you guys are thinking about, one that you're doing today, but that you're thinking about for the future that improve, even if it's not, it's some other vendor that you guys are wanting to bring some clarity to. I think dealers need more and more and more of that. They need, I've said it for a long time, many years. Most dealers don't really have a trusted inner circle. Maybe it's just a couple of people. I tell dealers all the time, I don't care who it is, if it's a vendor, if it's another dealer, if it's a smattering of all kinds of people from different parts of the industry. But if they're trustworthy, you need that. And essentially what you're talking about is one of those components. It's an extension of where all the people that I can trust, but what tools do I have that bring more trust, more credibility, and more help, especially when you're pouring through really critically important data to make better decisions with it. It makes it almost like more agnostic than then you're picking the winners and losers, right? You are literally trying to improve the balls and strikes system, which MLB probably should just go to the robot anyway. Their way, all the umpires are freaking terrible. Don't get me started on baseball because football's here now.
How are your Rangers doing? Are they doing well?
Oh, they're no, just not the. I mean, they were doing okay until they just got swept by the Astros.
I can't complain. My Phillies are up there, so we'll sit there as long as they're beating the Mets is what I say anytime.
Yeah. Live for another season. Let's talk a little bit. I want to swing you guys into last, a few questions that I have as we journey on here. Let's talk about industry, like trends, impact. And this is one that I think is going to be really good for you, Ralph, from that retail side. And I feel like this frames a little bit into affordability. It's become a really big thing. A little pre-COVID, but certainly after COVID, it's just craziness. But auto loans, the terms for them have stretched from, people are probably very familiar with the 60 months. And there's probably still some people that are like, that's probably the extension. They were like, what do you mean I can go 72 now? But they stretch as long as I think 96 months, just sign on forever. But there are impacts. There are cascading, rippling effects from things like this. And I wanted to ask you, what impact does this particular shift have on a dealer's financial health?
Well, And I'll tell you, it's funny thing is I just recently posted something on LinkedIn about this. So from my perspective, I can tell you when I first started in a Toyota store, 60 months was the outer edge of acceptable, risk, was that. And anything longer was, we raised serious questions. I remember talking about 72 months back then when I was first selling cars, and then people would freak out. Oh my God, it was available, but we don't want to do that. And here's all the reasons why, right? Today, 72 months is the norm, right? 84 months is more common. And I've seen 96 months peppered in already, and it's going to go over 100 months. It's happening. It's availability is there. And, pretty soon, and I was jokingly, put us on LinkedIn about, hey, it could be as much as a mortgage soon, right? It could be a mortgage time frame. And what does that do? And why? So for one, is you got rising costs, vehicle costs, right? Average cost of vehicles around $55,000, I believe, right? You got to add in tax, registration, warranties, fees, interest, right? Another 7, 10,000, whatever it is, depending on the car, at that average price. So you're making that loan hard to swallow for a consumer. It's just getting hard. The dollar amount, right? The monthly affordability is expensive. And I'll tell you, and I'm going to date myself, but my date is a lot younger than Layton's date on the movies. So I'm going to date myself for a second on Beverly Hills Cop 2.
Are you calling me old for the record?
No, absolutely not.
So
I recently just watched it because, they came out with a new, Axel Foley movie again. And I end up, so I'm watching the Beverly Hills Cops and I go back and watch Beverly Hills Cop 2. And the funny thing is something stuck out, obviously when I first saw it, I wasn't in the car business because I was, a kid. So I see it now as an adult and I'm like, wait a second. There was a part in the movie where Eddie Murphy's trying to get some flash money and with his Inspector Todd, I remember, and he's trying to put them together for some cash and whatever. And he's like, all right, I'll do it. But, just don't let anything happen to that Ferrari. That's a $50,000 vehicle. And I'm like, that caught my attention. I'm like, wait a second. Oh my God. That a Ferrari was $50,000. The average cost of anything right now is $55,000, right? Like, when was this movie made? It's like 88, 89, I don't know, 90, something like that. I'm like, that wasn't that long ago. And now the average of anything is $55,000, not a Ferrari, So, today's affordability is a concern. Prices are rising. Cost of ownership is becoming more expensive. Leasing is not always a viable solution. It's not necessarily a good solution for some states that don't even really offer leasing that makes sense. But banks even don't, their opportunity to make money on that is sometimes not worthwhile. So they don't like it. And then some clients and consumers don't like it or can qualify for it, right? So leasing is not always necessarily an option. So you got to go to the loan, but how do you squeeze it in, right? With all these things, you got, the result of term limits extending, the fear, takes on new risk. There's more risk there. What kind of risk can we look at? These long-term loans, how are you going to be able to pay down the principal fast enough to outpace the depreciation if you're taking as long as a mortgage? No. The reality is no. You're not going to. Right? So, but now what happens? Now that risk becomes whose risk? The consumer has some risk, right? Because there's negative equity there, assuming they absorb that negative equity or take that responsibility. But now the bank has risk also, right? They're taking on more risk because what if there's default? Defaults are already at a high number right now. They've been rising, right? So what happens if you're going 10, 15 years with default? And what about the cost of repairs? They keep rising. So now what happens with cost of repair? What happens when the client's car costs more money to fix? He's got 10 more years left on his long-term mortgage loan for his car. He's got, but the repairs cost more than the car. Does he just abandon the car and let it go? Right? And now the risk goes to the bank? Who absorbs that? And then what happens to the rest of the industry when that happens? Right? The bank doesn't want to have affordability rates. They start doing other things, right? Other compressions come. So, and we're already seeing margin compression as it is from the OEMs. And then fast forward to look at warranties. Okay, well, someone will say, oh, just get extended warranty. Great. How much is that going to cost for 15 years, 30 years, 20 years warranty? Now you have to add that back on. Are you really going to save, or you're just stretching it out and creating another issue? It's scary, and I'm not here to solve that, and I'm just pointing out probably the obvious, I think. But with a company like us, so how do we fit into that? So I'm going to bring it back. How we fit into that? Well, you have all this possible challenges, right? Margin compressions, possible opportunity to maybe not make as much money as you can, but you're going to hold more risk. So what can we do? We can eliminate, right, or limit the expense. So we're gonna monitor the vendor, for you and make sure there's no vendor creep, right? Make sure there's no ghost invoices. If there's an opportunity there to capture some maybe rebates because maybe there's a different time of pay. If you pay early, maybe there's a rebate opportunity, right? Or if you pay a certain way, there's a rebate opportunity. So we're gonna help capture that for the dealer so they can actually save money, In addition to that, now you have your employee, your AP person, and I'm not saying to eliminate the AP person, although that could be an option, but I'm not saying to do that. Maybe you reallocate them to something that can help your other part of the business, which is the sales part of it, whether it's sales or service, that's all sales, right? Parts, we're selling stuff. So, maybe I can put the AP person to help me in a titles department, right? Which that's something you need. You want those titles fast because you want to be able to sell those pre-owned cars, right? Or new cars. So I want to get that done. So maybe I put the AP person there, or maybe I put the AP person to help facilitate more payoffs faster, so I can get those payoffs done faster, so I can obviously cash flow, right? So I can cash a contract and move on from the car or whatever I want to do with it. Or maybe I take that AP person and allocate them to service department in the service drive, or to the parts department, for special order parts. Or maybe I put them in the sales department. Maybe I have them help with the BDC or just CSI in general, because that's the next the cars help getting sold by the guest experience. So I'm not saying eliminate, but maybe reallocate. And that's a savings that's going to help those other departments that are going to get compressed, as well. So
it's a really good example of what we've talked about on the episode already, but pain points inside the dealership, right? Some of which are out of their control, but they still have to figure out how to work with. And certainly when you start having, 60 months is no longer the norm, and it's now going to go over 100. What you just outlined is an example of something that dealers have to wade through. Not all of that is easy for them. In fact, a lot of that, what you're talking about, affects them in painful ways, many different painful ways. And you guys are working to be a solution in a multitude of ways that actually bring some relief to the dealers. And I think, again, I'll just keep pointing towards, I think that's really, really important. It's far more important than just entertaining someone's pitch, because they can help you sell more cars. Like, okay. I think
Right.
some dealers are a little tired of that. They know that's all they want to do is sell and service more vehicles, but maybe take some of these pain points off that are maybe in deeper layers around the operations of a store, and all of a sudden they feel like they've got a little breathing room. So let me
I want to just add one thing, Sean.
Yeah, go ahead.
You have a short-term thinking, and then you have a long-term thinking, right? And as an operator myself, I always was thinking long-term. So, and yes, sometimes you have to think short-term, but I'm always thinking long-term, for the long-term strategy, the long-term play, because that's the health of that organization or operation, right?
Yeah. Let's think like long term. I think that's smart. How is everyone's talking about AI? So how is artificial intelligence powering that part of Updation that helps dealers prevent fraud and manage their vendors more effectively?
I mean, fraud eats the margin quietly. It takes money from here and there, 1,000 a year, 100,000 a year, wherever it is, and then multiply the stores and imagine the loss that can happen. We have to make sure that the contracts and invoice and budgets are connected. They're not connected today, and we got to make sure that the fraud can't slip through. And how we're going to solve this is that we're going to scan the invoices and look for duplicate charges, mismatched line items to the contract and to what's going in, to make sure that nothing slides in there. And we're going to make sure that we don't have that contract leakage. We tie the invoices back to the contracts and budgets in real time, so you actually get to see what's going on and hopefully eliminate blind spots. We're going to prioritize invoices and payments to the vendors by history, terms, and fraud risk to preserve liquidity. I mean, that's important. We provide a transparent, AI-driven audit trail for all the dealership, for the OEM, for lenders, and for auditors. So that's important. So every single thing that you click on in our system is tracked. Who did what, who did how did it move, and who changed it, what did they change it from to. So this is all stuff that we are tracking to make sure that we are opening the kimono to make sure that you can trust and have transparency in the system. Our outcome is what AI doesn't automate paperwork. It protects margins, strengthens cash flow, and gives dealers vendor clarity instead of vendor chaos. And so we're trying to really help give insight to what they're doing on a daily basis inside the accounting office and have that transparency and trust. And we think that AI will help us get there.
Love that. Love it. As a CEO, Layton, what's been, at least thus far in with Updation, kind of maybe biggest lesson in starting to get this startup to start scaling? And maybe you've found that it's, I don't know, not so easy, but solving kind of a complex problem like this, but one that's been hidden.
It's funny. It's you sit here and you think you're going to come out with this idea and you're going to instantly build it and make a lot of money. That's the goal, right? Or one of the goals. I come out with contracts and I'm like, wait a minute, this is going to do really well, and then all of a sudden Wreck-It Ralph comes along and has other ideas to add in there. But what really has taught me is patience. I have to be patient, or I have to let things happen. I have to let things mature. I have to let people express their ideas, listen to people. I think that patience is the most important thing that I've learned in this process. And, you look at what we've been doing, it's like peeling back an onion over time. So each time you get to a new layer, you got to add it on. So I think that patience is the most important thing I can think of, that what I've learned and still learning. People who really know me out there, sometimes they know I'm not as patient as I should be. But as I age, I'm learning that more. But at the same time, you have to listen. You have to listen and look for feedback, and then not always act on it, but listen.
I think that's super important. I love all of that. I mean, I think slow is fast. It's just, especially in the environment we're in now. Ralph, though, I want to ask you from the COO seat, what about you? What's been your maybe biggest insight as you guys are building up operations around Updation, and maybe as you could speak to it from that kind of lived pain perspective?
Well, what I've learned, on this side of the fence. Again, I've never been on this side of the fence before. It's my first time. I've been COO on the other side of the fence, but not this side. So on this side of the fence, I could tell you one thing is I'm used to things happening faster. That's for sure. And this side of the fence is not as fast, So I can. That's definitely a pain point on this side, but an inside anyway.
It's like you're selling cars, Ralph. It's like, come on, how many are we going to get out this month?
Exactly. So, but anyway, I think that what I've noticed though, and I enjoy talking to different dealers. I really do, because I've always been one. It's funny because someone has told me, even someone on this call has told me that, hey, how come you don't do like a training thing and just train and talk to people? Because you enjoy it so much. And I do. And it's not because I like to hear myself talk. I like the fact that I never forgot where I came from. So I remember those days from day one. And I know that the pain it was to sit there and sell a car, especially then when you're in a slump and you haven't sold a car, right? And I never forget that. And I always remember from where I came from, and I always speak from that perspective. Even as I escalated in my career higher, I always remember that. And, so I understand the staff and I understand what they're going through, but I always want to educate. So I love talking to the dealers and really understanding where some of them come from, because some don't think they have a problem, right? Because they just don't know. They just don't know. And not everybody has the same, situation or experience that I have, and the same situations might not have occurred to them, or it has occurred, it's just it left unnoticed. There was some statistic somewhere that came out that, 60, 70% of, fraud is undetected or not reported, at companies. So, I think that not everybody has lived through what I've seen, and fortunately for them, that's great. But the reality doesn't change the fact that it's there. So when speaking to someone that's like, oh yeah, we don't have a problem, I think having that conversation and pointing out some spots that maybe they just haven't looked at, and then the eyes, like you can see it, like the light turns on, they pick up their head on, oh wow, okay, I didn't know that. I mean, so that's the part that really gets me excited, and building the team around education. You may not buy it from us, but you know what? Let me educate you at least. You know, and someday maybe you will, because I think that at some point what we're building here is like, you fast forward. We'll talk another movie, Click, with Adam Sandler, right? You fast forward to Click. Let's click 5 years ahead. Everybody's doing this. This is what it is, because right now it's like everything else. AI is there. It's going to be a part of our life. It's going to start doing other things for us. Why wouldn't it do this? It's going to do this. It's just a matter of timing, right? You're either an early adapter, right, and you're ahead of everybody else, and that gives you a leg up, or you're going to wait until the masses do it, and then everybody's doing it, and now something else will be the next thing that's coming, and you'll be behind the eight ball because you're just learning this.
Yeah.
So
there's always that bell curve factor.
That's what I think. I think you fast forward, it's everybody's doing it. It's going to be there, and that's going to be part of life. And it should.
Yeah, I love the educational focus. I think that's important. I think that's one of the things that I've always enjoyed about my conversations, no matter what time or where, whatever event we've been at over the years with Layton, is we talk about things that I think have really educational value to dealers. And I think that a lot of companies aren't really good at taking the things about their company that help to educate and collaborate on, well, what are the problems? What are the pain points? Now, how do we solve them? Instead, it's been more of the corporatized, like, how do we force feed and pitch all of this and harass dealers and try to get them to buy stuff that they don't need? And now, I think it's safe to say that there are a lot of dealers that have, whether they wanted to or not, they've had to build up a little bit of the calluses for the army of people that constantly come in trying to get them to do this by way of email and other. I mean, you've lived it for a long time, Ralph. It needs to be where the messaging of a solution cuts through, I think, first and foremost, typically with the education of why this is going to make a difference. And what better outcome if you didn't say yes on the first call? It was like not a first call close or a first in-person visit close. Okay, fine. But if you give somebody some educational value, a couple nuggets that just help them, that changed my perspective, but for the better, you're going to be liked and trusted because you just gave somebody some truthful information that will make them better that day and every day after that than they were before that interaction. That's the kind of stuff that companies need to be doing more and more and more and more of, because you mentioned this just a second ago. There's nearly 500,000 people in just Miami alone, right? That's a lot of people to sell cars to. There's only 18,000-ish franchise car dealers across the United States of America. And so you're still doing things in an industry, but now you're thinking about it differently. And the fact that you're tailoring the approach to making sure that it's educational so that the dealers understand how and why it's solving pain points. I don't know. I couldn't be even a better advisor for you guys. I just like talking about it and sharing these perspectives and hearing from you. I've got one question for both of you before we find a parking spot for the episode. And that is, what advice would you give to founders who are building from like lived experiences instead of just chasing the hype that's always in the market?
Well, you can't change one's basic character, I guess. So if that's their character to chase the market, then that's what they're going to do, But, for someone like us or like me, I'll speak for myself, is that, I've had many opportunities to come on this side of the fence through the years and never really had, I guess the pain point, I guess, going back to say, yes, I want to do it, right? Until now. So for me, it's again, I go back to the education. It's solving a problem. It's educating. It's something that I like to do. So I like to do it, and I think that we have a solution for a real issue. So what I say to other founders is that, I guess to a hammer, everything's a nail, right? And in this case, find something that maybe is a passion point for you. I feel like, you're going to do it better, right? I mean, you're going to do it better because you want to do it, right? You're not chasing a dollar or that. You're not doing that. You're doing it for another reason, right? And the reward comes with that. I feel.
Yeah,
doing
it for the right
that's
reason.
Kind of how my outlook always has been on
it's
whatever
funny,
it is.
Ralph. I mean, I would agree with you totally on the pain side. Just like you got to solve something that's not pitched for hype or anything like that. You got to solve the pain, and it's never going to be perfect what you build, but you got to solve that pain. But I also agree that you got to believe in what you're building. But I would also add you got to surround yourself with the right team. So it's the pain that is the struggle of what you're solving for your customers, not going off track and listening to everything because everyone's going to keep coming at you with new things. I think that, thinking about it, you have to believe, but I also surround yourself with the right people. I mean, that's what I have finally learned after 2 times, and going forward as I get ready for my 3rd venture here, it's the people that I'm surrounding myself with, that their character, what they bring to the table, just not only on a professional but on a personal level. Hopefully that my nickname for Ralph sticks, even though he's going to get annoyed with it after a while. But at the same time, having this jovial relationship, but also when it's serious and really getting down to meeting what we need to do to drive Updation to where we believe it can go. And we think that there's a lot of we're excited about what we're building. We're excited about what's happening. We have a lot of hype coming in at different areas, but we're trying to ignore it and say, all right, we're doing this first, second, and it's not as fast as you want. It goes back to what we talked about earlier. It's about patience and the right people.
Yeah, I love that. I got to tell you guys, this has been a fantastic episode 1. I'm really, again, thankful. I have a lot of gratitude for you both to allow me to host and have these conversations with you. I get to learn a lot in these types of conversations in an industry that we all have spent years in and will continue to spend years in, hopefully, with untold amounts of crazy success, that so much of it that we wouldn't even know what to do with, especially for you guys as you venture into something brand new. And I got to tell you, as we wrap up episode 1, the first thing that's most important is just a huge thank you. Thank you guys for taking the time to do it, to make this a priority, and also to the audience that's listening and or watching. If you're not already following Layton Judd and Ralph Perkins on LinkedIn, I want to invite you to do that. In fact, I would direct you to go do that. Not that I can direct you, but I would tell you should do that. They already post a lot of content there. They will continue to be posting. And also, make sure you go follow Updation, also on LinkedIn and everywhere else on social you can find them. If you want to learn more, if you're that dealer who's kind of like listening to this and you're like, I'm tired of, and now I'm going to look for some of all this hidden fraud. You know it's there, by the way. But if you're tired of it, if you're tired of the vendor chaos that comes with trying to manage contracts and all these really high impact financial details of operating your stores, all of that adds up to wasted profit, wasted dollars. And I think it's probably time for you to figure out, well, how do you solve that problem? Well, check out updation.ai. You can go to their website right now and learn a whole lot more, a whole bunch of content there. If you've enjoyed this first conversation, be sure follow, give us a like, give us a comment, especially if you see this on YouTube. Go down there and say, hey, I want to jump on this so you'll see the next one. And this is just the beginning. We'll be bringing a lot more. And you're going to hear, of course, from Ralph. Has got story after story from this lived experience on his side of the industry, and with Layton and his story as an entrepreneur and somebody who's built multiple solutions for dealers. You're going to hear a lot more, but you're also going to hear about strategies and things that will help you cut through the noise to get that clarity where it matters most. So until next time, thanks for listening.